evening, everyone. I'm Molly, the Kush RN, and you've reached Conversations with Kush podcast. Tonight, I have a great guest, Mr. Brandon Padget from Union Bank and Trust. He is the Chief Deposit Officer. Welcome, Brandon, to the show.
Thanks for having me, Molly.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about Union Bank and Trust. I know that they've been around since the 70s and servicing unions mostly, and now have moved into the cannabis realm about 10 years now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. So we were founded in 76 by the local building trade leaders, along with Hubert Humphrey and a lot of the other politicians at the time. He actually cut the ribbon at the opening of the bank.
Sweet.
To support labor, right? In the 70s, they saw a lot of changes and saw money that was driven by the working men and women of the state going to banks and corporations that weren't labor forward, didn't support the movement, didn't support the worker, everyday worker, so they founded us. So very rare. We're one of a few banks, 49 years, same ownership that founded us is still the same ownership today, 100% union owned, built for the men and women of this state and now national. We're banking unions coast to coast.
Nice.
10 years ago, we got into the cannabis space with medical. Kind of on a whim a little bit. The board was like, the two that came were looking for banks, and the board said yes to one of them. And then as medical became legal, members, right? So you saw electricians or sheet metal workers or plumbers or laborers, start to use the medical and inflammation go down. And, my dad's a retired electrician. He's got kidney issues as a 65-year-old man now from ibuprofen.
Okay.
From the pain. So they saw people kicking the ibuprofen, kicking the opioids, whether it was balms, like a CBD balm on a knee or a shoulder or whatever. They saw members having great reactions, and they went all in. So the Farm Bill passed. We brought in, hemp-derived clients, and then the low-potency bill passed, and we brought those on, and we're getting ready to go adult use rec and have some awesome people, operators out there that are waiting on licenses, are excited for licenses, as are we, because it's been a waiting game.
Yeah.
That's the kind of the precipice of Union Bank and Trust in our space in the cannabis. There's a lot of banks that have come and asked, should we get in or why? And my first thing is, unless your board is all in, because we see it, you've heard it, we've all heard it. There's operators been at the bank a year, 2 years, 3 years, all of a sudden they go, we're closing your account in 30 days. And that's a board decision. They make a change, or I can't speak for them all, but something happens because their bank's not all in.
Gotcha.
And that's a big thing I preach. There's some banks in the state that are. There's some really good banks that are all in.
What are some of the things that scare the banks off then?
Compliance, fact that it's not federally legal, just some of the, we all remember the reefer. We don't remember, we weren't alive, but the reefer madness, everybody's seen the video, those misconceptions or rumors or,
right.
Or stigmas. Or, I've seen where the bank gets in because one of the owners is dabbling in the CBD space or whatever, and then they get out and they're like, we don't need to support my business. Let's not support other businesses. There's many reasons, but that's why when you're interviewing a bank as an operator or a potential operator, figure out why they're in it, how they're in it, and is it driven by the people in the bank, or is it also driven by the ownership group, like ours?
So there's a real vested interest in supporting people through their cannabis journey, whether that be in a business front or supporting your members that are, using cannabis. So I appreciate that work. That's really awesome. Thank you. What types of services then does your bank provide for people?
Think about a full service financial, right? So anything you would need to be an operator. Your checking account, your savings account, those are kind of the duh. But how do you move your money? How does it get to where it's going? The online, the treasury services, reporting. We have partnered with a really cool fintech out of Southern Texas, Risk Out, for Bank Secrecy Act and anti-money laundering. That's BSA, AML, and know your customer. These are all laws that, to be compliant, you have to follow, right? And I won't dig into those because those are boring, and I have to take the trainings every year, but you don't. But those are things that make sure when the FDIC comes in or the state comes in to audit you that you're doing those things. And so Risk Out does all those things on the back end, and it helps support the operator too. So it's making sure their licenses are up to date. It's doing the good and bad news checks for them. It's making sure they're licensed with the state of Minnesota in our case. And, if it's coming up, they get alerts, and on the back end, they track the cash variance to make sure everything is right. They have to report that stuff to the state. Anti-money laundering, cannabis space, it's cash intensive, so people worry about that. So the cool thing about Risk Scout is the owner, Justin, his dad is a hemp farmer in Texas, right? Cool. So as we try to partner with these third parties, we're looking for people, again, I say all in a lot. It's one of our values at Union Bank and Trust. Are they all into the space? Mm-hmm. Are they vested in it? Are they looking for a dollar?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people trying to find a quick buck or apply the canna tax to their business because they see people that don't know where to go, don't know where to turn. And we're unabashedly forward about no canna tax. If you saw us at Lucky Leaf, if you look at our social media, go to our website. But again, it's a choice. So the operator may choose us, but we're going to interview an operator. And do you have a good business plan?
Yeah.
Have you signed your LPA? We hear a lot, I don't have to sign a labor peace agreement unless I get to 10. True. You want to bank with us, you do. I just told the story about why we were founded, right?
Yeah,
we're labor forward. And if you're not willing to talk to organizers or let your people talk to organizers, we don't really want to have a relationship, right? And then if you don't have business plans, you don't have an LPA, if you're just dreaming, there's nothing wrong with being a dreamer. We all have wonderful dreams.
Yeah.
So if you're just dreaming and you don't have it put together, we're going to give you a list. We're not just going to send you off into the street. We'll give you things you need to do, people to talk to. Again, those different partners around. There's so many in the state and the metro that are amazing.
Yeah.
We'll give you those lists. Go talk to them and come back. So it's not just, yay, we have low fees or no fees in some cases. Come bank with us. It's, are you suited and set up to be an operator to drive cannabis forward in the state? Our board meeting in December said, we need you guys to grow this industry. Why? It grows good jobs.
Right.
It widens the middle class back out. It gives good people places to start.
Right.
And we want to see them not starting at $12 an hour. 18 is still a little light. Get those $20 an hour jobs.
I hate to see or think about, this $1 billion industry, having people work 2 and 3 jobs to support their family. It's like, there's enough money to go around for everyone. So if we can just kind of disperse that a little bit better,
yes,
that would be nicer.
Absolutely.
What are some of the other values of Union Bank and Trust that help support new business owners coming in?
So our values are all in, which you said, which is just kind of about all in on the labor movement and all in on our clients, right? Just we don't want to do anything that's a test or let's check it out. Let's see.
Yeah.
And then solidarity. You're from the labor movement. So what's that mean? That means we all stand together for a better America, right? Or a better Minnesota in this case, to better a worker's life. Because everybody goes to work every day, and that's what makes our economy. That's what drives everything. And we believe that we want to stand arm in arm with labor and help labor move forward to drive better jobs for people.
I love that.
Those are the biggest thing. And then legacy is the other. So we go back to 76, right? Yeah. Why were we founded? To support the labor unions that support the men and women that have literally built this state, built this country. There's nurses such as yourself. They're the teachers. They're the people that serve you at the restaurant, the people that check you in your hotel. So we want to honor that legacy. So bringing on new operators and making sure they're not canna taxed so they can create. I talked to somebody at Lucky Leaf, pretty big operator, luckily not in Minnesota, out of South Dakota, that was explaining to me they spent $30,000 in banking fees. I asked them, what could you do with that $30,000? And the first thing was hire a part-time employee, get my weekend back.
Right.
When I hear that, I think about an operator wearing themselves out. So even if it's a good business with good jobs, if you can't run at 100 miles an hour for years. You'll burn out. You'll sell the business. The business will fail. It won't get your best.
You lose your passion.
You lose your passion.
Yeah.
So, $30,000 is a lot of money.
It is.
If a small business can take that part-time member, more product, more marketing, research, whatever, it can go back into the business. And you think about the future, cool. We have them for 2 years and made some fees. Awesome. We have them for 20 years and they've scaled and they're a 50-person employer, and that's way better for us,
Right.
for them, for the state. Yeah,
I have to imagine that's pretty like a source of pride too when you
Absolutely.
see things like that happening. One of the things I wanted to say was, sorry, shit, I lost it.
no worries.
So I was thinking about being that, not just the legacy piece, but also just being that trusted resource in the community, right? Like these are the folks that are really invested in seeing you win and seeing you being successful. They want you to be well in all aspects of life. So, again, great work on that. One other thing I wanted to mention was it sounds like you're very supportive of new people coming in.
Absolutely.
So maybe if they come into the bank and they have this big dream, right, and they're just not sure like how to put all the pieces together, it sounds like you have a supportive platform to help them kind of figure things out. Just talk a little bit more about that if you could.
So again, back to just talking to people, getting connections through the space, and who do we think or view as somebody that's here to help grow it versus just make a buck. So there's CPAs, there's lawyers, there's distributors, there's manufacturers, there's all the things you need, cultivators, that we believe off top are just great people that are trying to grow the industry. And we'll give people a list. We don't give them one CPA or one lawyer because, if they don't match that, everything's a personal choice. But here's a list of people we think you should talk to that we believe are going to help us drive this industry forward and help you succeed as an operator. Because dreams are awesome, but a dream is a dream. Without a plan, where do you go?
Do you get a lot of people like that coming in, or do people pretty much kind of do they know what they want and like what they're looking for and what they need?
It's
like
now,
who do you serve? Yeah.
Now today it's more put together, right? The people have their plans, have their spaces, have their real estate, whatever it looks like, or know what they're going after. You go back kind of right after the announcement and the first lottery that didn't happen that we're all aware of. Prior to that, there was just a lot of people calling or walking in going, I went to a Blockbuster once, so I understand retail, and I smoked weed in high school, so I'm going to be a millionaire. And like, that's not how this works, guys.
If only.
If only, right? It's not a lottery ticket. There's a lot of work. You know this. You talk to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Whether it's the bank or you are the operator or you're supporting the operator, there's a lot of work. And nothing comes easy. A dollar is never made easily. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, people that got it together, got their network or whatever that we could help provide if needed. But yeah.
What are so like the industry is like very complex with federal regulations. So what are some of the biggest challenges that cannabis businesses face when they're trying to access financial services?
Well, the limit of it, right? There's a lot of people don't understand cannabis in general. It's still where it's scheduled, right? It's scheduled like it's going to kill you.
Exactly.
It's a plant.
With heroin, yeah.
Everything else on that list is manufactured, is man-made, is ridiculously addictive, can kill you with one dose, right?
Right.
I listened to a podcast once. You'd have to smoke like 200 pounds of marijuana an hour or something.
I think
overdose.
It's 6.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's really high. It's a really high number.
It's an insane number. So the limited access and then the high cost. We're trying to build a lending program. We have a lending program. What I say by trying is there's a lot of people that need startup money.
Right.
Right now, with the way it's scheduled, there's no USDA money out there, no USDA guarantees. There's no SBA guarantees out there. And for a bank, when you look at risk profile, you'd love to help that small business owner that needs $50,000, $100,000 in a line of credit. But right now, for the auditors and our people that come look at us, we have to underwrite in a traditional way.
Sure.
So if you don't have hard assets,
like a house to put up,
or a building or cars or a big life insurance plan, whatever, it's hard to get that startup money. And we have some partners too out in the marketplace that we could send them to get them started.
Is that typically what it takes then for startup? Is $50,000 to $100,000 for a small business?
It depends on the person, but that's a typical ask: $50,000 or $100,000 in a line of credit. So that's why I use those numbers. But so access to capital is super difficult. It's either you have the hard assets, or you go to like a venture capitalist or a private equity, and they want to carve you out of your own business. It seems like most of the time speaking out of turn, I guess, but then there's the concern that a lot of people, especially the banks, have the cash management concerns. Oh, the money came from cannabis. Is the Fed going to take it? And there's the imperial clause, the imperial amendment out there that protects from that a little bit, but you never know, especially where we're going with the government right now. It seems like every other day, a big change or a department shutdown or whatever. Not to dive deep into politics, but it's like it's scary.
It is.
So another thing is building the compliance program. We're lucky enough to have Debbie Foss. She is. I can't speak to the bankers at Stearns. I don't know who's been around, but she's been in this cannabis since it's been in the state. Right. So her expertise, along with other people on the staff and then Risk Out, help us feel comfortable and confident in the back end of that. And some banks don't have that, or they view it as we're going to have to hire 6-7 new people, and that's expensive.
Sure.
And, so it's cost prohibitive. Or even a third party like Risk Out has a cost.
Sure.
But we believe with our vendors that we're bringing on to support cannabis that we want cannabis, so we're not passing the cost on in that sense. Just because, again, we'd have to hire 3 people to do what Risk Out does.
Yeah.
I can do math. It's way cheaper to hire Risk Out. So you have those issues, and then payment processing. We saw at Lucky Leaf that some of the ACH come tumbling down, right?
Yeah.
The cannabis ACHs were always just hidden in the minutia.
Right.
Somebody caught up. I don't pretend to be the expert on who caught up to it, but somebody caught up to it, and we had all that issues last weekend. So how do they move the money? What's it look like for them?
Right.
I talked about all those things. Yeah. Okay. So it's those things.
Besides Debbie, how do you navigate that legal gray area and provide services and still maintain compliance?
So it's not really a gray area as a state regulated bank, right? We have our program, our cannabis program, our AML BSA program that the state auditors have looked at, the FDIC has looked at, because it's legal in the state of Minnesota. It's legal to have the cash, right? And that's where the Imperial Amendment comes in.
Okay.
The DEA, FBI, the government, they say they won't go after any cannabis money made legally in a legal state.
Okay.
For those of you that don't know, and I might be murdering this because I read it a while ago.
Say it.
Imperial is a cash transit company that was moving, I believe, cash from a legal business in Oklahoma to a bank that legally banked in Colorado.
Gotcha.
And a DEA agent decided to start taking those trucks, and it was like $3 million or $2.8 million or something like that. And
sounds like the mafia.
There you go. And then Imperial's like, what the hell? And the operators are like, what the hell? And they went to court, and now there's the Imperial Amendment, so that says they won't go after. Previously, who knows what's going to go on with the government right now?
Yeah.
But we won't go after cannabis money made legally.
Right.
So.
Well, hopefully we can get rescheduling done. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see cannabis descheduled personally, but it's probably going to be Schedule 3, so that's whatever.
And then for us, even Schedule 3, it's still limited, right? So you'd still have all those other issues. So we need safe banking or whatever the iteration it's called today that allows access and says it's just good to bank this across the country.
What should cannabis entrepreneurs look for when they're choosing a bank partner, and what are some of the red flags?
What should they look for? Again, I kind of said it in the intro.
Yeah.
Somebody that's all in. Are you talking to them about their board? Are you talking to them about their experiences? Are you talking to them about who's supporting? Do they have the program, the AML BSA program? Has that bank already talked with their regulator or their auditor? Have they talked with the state, the FDIC for us in the state of Minnesota? Have they talked to the OCM? That name gets drugged through the mud a lot, but I always ask people, list the things OCM has done well. And they can list a lot. There's some things that are very frustrating on the back end for operators or potential operators, but have that bank, do they have a relationship? Are they going out and asking them? If they talk to finance, Minnesota Finance Department, has your bank got a relationship? Ask the questions. What was the second part of the question? It's left
just
me.
What are some of the red flags?
People that haven't. it's the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
Or people that say, well, we have to charge these fees because.
The upcharging, the canna tax.
It costs money to turn the lights on. It costs money
for sure.
to have staff. So there's fees. Banks have fees, right? Banks make money on spread. You have to make money to have the services, but some of the ones we've seen, $2,500 a month for a checking account.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Did you charge your ATM service business that?
Yeah.
Did you charge your online gambling business that?
Right.
Because there's other high risk markets, right? And typically, no.
Right.
They didn't. So why the cannabis? And then where have they got their background? we use PBC. The PBC, Payments, Banking, and Compliance in Cannabis, is an organization out of DC, and we use their training, the PBC certifications.
Okay.
They're several hour courses. There's two. There's level 1, level 2, where you get all the history of cannabis and the legality of it. You get the understanding of 280E, all the things you need to know at a very high level, because we're not a 280E expert, right? And we're not cash transit expert. That's why we have partners.
Right.
But do you understand it? Do they understand it? Other red flags, just any banker, this is just my opinion, so now maybe this isn't a red flag, but if they're, I think about Lucky Leaf. There was some really good banks there that have been in it, and there's some newer ones that I talked to them all. But how do the people show up? Do they show up to your cannabis business in a sport coat and slacks? Or did they show up in a bank hoodie?
Yeah.
Are they taking you seriously? Because, I like my quarter zip, but if I'm coming to my first meeting and you're an operator, I want to show you that you matter. I'm going to dress a little nicer because I represent you as your bank, not just your buddy. I don't know, maybe that's just a personal thing for me, but no, I think as a banker or as a professional.
I think that you are very mindful. In fact, I heard you on the Northern Lights podcast, and you talked about, cannabis use amongst professionals, and you wait until you're done with your day and then you use cannabis, So I think being mindful in many aspects around cannabis is really helpful and important. One of the things that I love about you guys is that, you understand that relationships are the crux of everything. Absolutely. I see you at so many events. I see you out at happy hour. I see you everywhere talking to people and really getting to know people. And I think that's the most important thing. When I say, what are the red flags? I'm like, you think about a bank, it's already intimidating to go in there. But if you can go in and be like, I talked to Brandon at happy hour last week. I think we have a good plan, So I think if people are just sitting down and you're taking the time to look at them, eye to eye and be like, let's walk you through this. This is where you're at. This is where you need to be. And these are the action steps that'll get you there. I think that's really important.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate that personal touch. What is safe banking?
Oh, geez. Safe banking essentially, it's I think it's been around since 2017. That wasn't on your pre-list of questions.
I know it wasn't.
So safe banking is, it's essentially an amendment that would allow cannabis banking just to be legal. So even if it's not descheduled, it allows in that high-risk place the ACHs are legal for everybody, right? The SBA then could open up and do SBA guarantees. And this is my understanding. Talk to your lawyer, your congressman or woman, I guess. But it would just make it easier where the banks wouldn't have to worry about somebody coming in and seizing the money. Or if you're regulated by the Fed, you wouldn't have to worry about the Fed shutting you down or coming in and taking money or giving you a big bank fine. It just protects the banks that want to support cannabis better.
Okay. And then with the federal legalization and safe banking, what changes do you foresee in the future for cannabis banking?
Future, hopefully comfortability. We're the 23rd state, right? We understand that. And as more and more do it with just legal THC, right? Yeah. Adult use rec. And there's so many more states that have the hemp is in all, right? And then you have the medical. So as it becomes more common, I'm trying to think of an analogy, where when something's new, there's a lot of trepidation and there's a lot of scariness and we don't understand the rules. But the more we understand rules, the more people do research, and as those descheduling and the safe bank comes, everybody can do it without looking for Big Brother over their shoulder.
Gotcha.
And I think that's the biggest thing is as people get more comfortable. We talked prior to this. Almost everybody has some sort of a relationship with cannabis, whether it's a buddy or it's themselves, whether it's high school or college or it's somebody coming to it later in life for aches and pains, whatever that is. Everybody has a relationship some way with cannabis, and the more we can talk about that and be forward with it, we're pretending that it's not a thing, right? There's some states that are like, you go there and there's marijuana everywhere. Yeah. And then they're voting it down, Florida.
Right. North and South Dakota.
North and South Dakota. where the constituents voted yes and the governor said no. Yeah. It's this old school mentality. So as we break away from that and get into, I can't think of another industry right now off the top of my head, but
that's okay.
Where you become more comfortable and confident, and society lets you become more comfortable and confident, which we're getting there in Minnesota, right? We talked about that. People coming to it later in life because they have things going wrong and they don't want to fill their body with medicine.
Right.
Not a freak. I'll go to the doctor. I'm vaccinated.
Yeah.
But some of these medicines, you're on them to maintain something,
one pill is causing a side effect, and then you take another pill for that side effect, and so on and so forth.
It's how do we help drive forward and just have conversations? If you're a supporter of this, or you're a supporter of somebody who's a supporter of this, have open conversations. And the more, again, I said it a lot, comfortable and confident we are just as a society, the easier and better it'll be to bank, to operate, to just talk about.
Yeah, for sure. I think it is really important. It's one of the missions of the podcast is really to normalize cannabis use, especially as medicine, and just really destigmatize cannabis. And, so even if you are someone who doesn't wait until the end of their workday, if you get up and you smoke cannabis or use cannabis right away in the morning to get you going, my hope and dream is that people won't make a judgment about that. Everyone's personal relationship with cannabis is different, and there doesn't have to be any kind of judgment attached to it. So I think you're right, we need to just really open that up, and I think education is often key to that. People, if they can learn that they have an endocannabinoid system in their body, and just because your doctor doesn't know about it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Right. So there's a lot of work to do. But
you think about it, there's a difference, right? I'm a recreational cannabis user. I shouldn't be using it 10 a.m. because I'm at work. Yeah. Saturday's fine. If you're a medical cannabis user, because whatever it is, that's different. That's it. There's a big distinction there.
I think that there's actually not. I find no delineation between people that consider themselves medical cannabis users and recreational users, because I think we're all using cannabis for our own set of problems or symptoms that we're trying to, resolve within ourselves. So I think there can be a tipping point, though, where people are like, okay, maybe it's a little too much, but that is up to that person to be like, yeah, I'd like to spend less money on cannabis, or I'd like to, be more present at the end of the day,
I'm thinking in my industry, I don't want to be snapping in Eric's office hey, wake up, focus, right? Yeah. That's where I'm going with that comment. Yeah.
I mean, some people are really functional, though. I've heard of people saying dabbing gives them a really functional type of experience, so they feel more clear and level-headed. So I don't know.
It's like everything, right? There's you think about ADHD, it's not the same for everybody, and this medicine for this person makes them and this one makes them off the wall. There's a good balance of how does it affect your body, what's right for you, and to your point, are you present? Yeah, exactly. And doing your work, if we're talking about work right now, whatever you want to do on Saturday, be as present or unpresent as you want.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks for that little breakout. I love that. So cannabis businesses are still pretty cash heavy. What's the risks of that, and what financial strategies would you recommend to mitigate those risks?
The risk, I think the biggest risk when you're cash heavy is security, right? Yep. And security's not cheap, but the right doors, the right windows, the right safes. If you're super cash heavy, I know it's an extra cost, but I wouldn't suggest moving that money on your own, right? We have a partner that does armored cash transport. Okay. What we love about them is they're hiring ex-police or ex-military people. They're coming in an Explorer versus a giant truck that says, look, I have money here. They're professional, and then the other thing is digital safes are huge. Okay. What I love about digital safes is you put the money in, you can't get it back out. It's gone. It's a bank deposit. Okay. We get a notification that night your money is there, so your cash flow doesn't wait, right? Okay. So whether you do it pick up weekly, pick up biweekly, your cash flow is still there every night.
So you can still
operate. And it's secured, and then somebody's coming in, removing it with two people, taking it out in an armored car. And there's a cost, but what I like to tell people is if you're the owner-operator or if you own multiple stores, who's going to take that cash? It's you. Or it's your manager, the highest paid person in your operation, and now they're out of the bank, they're out of the office, or out of the dispensary, out of the wherever, right, for an hour, 2 hours, depending on where the bank is. Yeah. They're going to get lunch, now they're out for 3 hours. and that's your biggest expense.
Right.
And you do that every day.
And they're taking a huge risk.
And they're taking a huge risk.
Right.
Yeah. It's crazy. So things like that, how can we secure things? And I think the secured armor transport, and I'm not pretending like there's not a cost associated with, but the peace of mind in that, we have a Ring camera, right?
Yeah.
Does it really provide security? No, but somebody comes to the door that you don't know or whatever.
Yeah.
You have a picture, a video. It provides a peace of mind.
Sure.
Hopefully nothing ever happens, and it's a cost that's sunk in a sense, because nobody ever tries to rob you. That's amazing. Nobody ever tries to take your cash. That's amazing. But just, I think about it from the bank side. We're high in cash. We don't go out. It's locked away in a vault. We don't move it for ourselves. And a lot people think banks got all the money. Actually, we don't carry. Banks don't carry very much cash. A lot of these dispensaries have more cash than we do.
Sure.
And the cool thing about the pickup is it doesn't go to your bank. It goes directly to the Fed.
Yeah.
So it's just.
I've always encouraged people too, where they're like, oh yeah, I want to start a dispensary. Oh, I'm going to apply for my license. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. It's like, let's think about some ancillary jobs that you could do in the cannabis industry, like security or
transportation.
Yeah, exactly. I wish people would think outside the box, or lab work,
Marketing, lab work.
Yeah.
There's one testing lab in the state right now,
Exactly,
right? More
yeah.
coming, obviously, but people. I talked to a guy out of Duluth, and I'm sure there's more, but I haven't heard of one. Pest control.
Yeah.
Cannabis. Only pest control.
Sure. That's smart.
I didn't think about it.
Yeah, me neither.
Obviously, I grew up in Iowa. I understand ag. There's pest control. There's different things that have to happen. I should have thought about it. But yeah, that's outside of the box. There's so many ways to help the industry, so many ways to grow the industry, so many ways to make money in the industry.
For sure. For sure. How do you see traditional finance institutions evolving to better support the cannabis industry?
Federal legalization changes it all, right? Then you have USDA, you have SBA, you have all the big players in it. You can do some different things. But again, it just comes back to comfortability. The more people see it, talk to all the banks at Lucky Leaf and just explain to them how we're lending, why we're lending, what we're doing, the advanced rates, things like that. So for me, I know we can't be the only cannabis bank in the state of Minnesota. That's a ludicrous thought.
Yeah.
So how can I just email back and forth with another bank president today? I guess I'm not a bank president, with a bank president today about meeting and furthering the conversation we had. So
that's awesome. Sharing
our message of comfortability and the whys and the hows, the more other banks understand the business that it's not, it's not a fly by the seat type of thing. The better. I've said it ad nauseum now, but the more we get comfortable in the industry. So I probably talked to 12 different banks over the last 3 months.
That's awesome. That's really great leadership too, I think, to stand out and be like, hey, this is what we stand for. And, how can we help you guys, come into the fold, and how can we collaborate, or how can we work together? Or, I love that. Yeah. I think that's, hopefully one of the unique things about Minnesota is that we will collaborate with people and, play nice in the sandbox. So
I think about the industry here, and I probably use this example too much, but I think about Unreal, right? Out of the Egan, I think. They just had a Super Bowl commercial. Why? Because Minnesotans love Minnesota stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So the more we can support these Minnesotans, and the more people listening go out and support the local craft owners and operators and drive it forward, and we get the brands, right? We've done it in beer.
Exactly.
We've done it in vodka.
Yeah. And we have the best cannabis beverage industry in the whole nation. So so the more we do that, the more we drive that, the more banks, some of these bigger THC drinks, the low potency drinks, they're operating out of some of the bigger banks. Yeah. And so that's driving comfortability. Would we love to have them? Come see us. But no, we need all the banks, all the professional services to get comfortable. Yeah, for sure.
Understand it, because Minnesota's going to do what Minnesota does, and that's support each other.
Yeah, I like it small, actually. Yeah. I like to see, people that aren't Wells Fargo, or, JP Morgan or Chase or whoever. I would prefer to see Union or even U.S. Bank. I think they're a local bank too. So,
But there's awesome banks out there. I mean, Bridgewater, Park State, Magnify's doing it. Stearns has been in it as long as we have. So doing a commercial for my competitors, what people say. I don't view us as competitors. I view us as all banks, and I'm leaving some out, sorry. All banks that are trying to drive this industry forward.
Yeah.
Because we need to.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. I mean, it's a supportive service that, you know, the industry needs. So just like marketing or insurance or, you know, other things. What do you understand about 280E and how does that affect how you're able to operate?
Asking a banker about taxes is a cardinal sin.
It is?
Yeah,
we didn't know this.
We don't do anything with taxes. We won't even talk about taxes to our clients. We refer them. My understanding of 280, though, is it blocks the things that a traditional business can write off to save money and invest back in their business.
Gotcha.
That's the simplest form of it. You know, if I operate Brandon's bowling alley and I buy pins, I can write that off, right? I buy the beer. I take a road trip to a conference, or I buy a plane ticket to a conference. I can write those things off.
Sure.
So I don't have to pay as much taxes or get money back at the end of the year to put back in to my business.
Okay.
Our cannabis-related operators can't do that.
Okay. So you don't really, that part's just out of your purview then. That's kind of,
Yes. Yes. So we need the CPAs for that. That's
all right. Next show. Talk about your personal relationship with cannabis. When did you first consume cannabis?
When did I first consume cannabis? So I told you this story offline. I followed a woman to Kansas City when I graduated college. And a friend that I knew from high school that moved down there, I smoked with her earlier at the beginning of college, and then started smoking with him again in Kansas City, and pretty light recreational user over the years. You know, as the industry stood up here and it's been more accessible, less stigma, you know, it's use it at the cabin versus alcohol.
Yeah.
Or, you know, my parents were in town. Don't listen, Mom and Dad. The last 2 nights they came to see my son's play, which was canceled because of snow. But so THC drink last night as my mom talks at me or with me, however you want to look at that.
Yeah.
Just to chill. And then it's, you know, for me, it's completely replaced alcohol. In a situation where you'd have alcohol, I'm typically having a THC drink or smoking or whatever, or just to relax on a Friday night. It's all the spaces your typical alcohol user would use. I use it there. I ended my relationship. I don't know if I've completely ended it with alcohol. I haven't drank alcohol in quite a while now, but it's, you know, if you want to use a little bit, it's relaxing. You want to use a lot, it can be many different things. I think we all understand that, but it's. And I'll talk about my wife because she won't listen. You know, when the drinks came around, you know, she was a recreational smoker for a long time. But we have a 7 and a 5-year-old, both boys. They're all boys.
Yeah.
They fight, they scream, they kick, they break stuff. So she'll open a drink at the end of the night now and just
perfect.
Relax back into it. You know, that soccer mom market is massive.
Yeah,
and I don't mean that as a negative thing. I have a soccer mom at home that makes sure our house runs. Yeah. But that's a thing that's going to drive this industry forward and
for sure.
make it more accepted, I guess. Mm-hmm. You know, it's hard to argue with Tina and Blaine at the sports center who's watching her kids, right?
Right. I think sometimes those soccer moms might have alcohol in their cups too, in their Stanleys. So I don't know.
They do. Absolutely.
I don't know. I wasn't a soccer mom like that.
But I think it's a thing that, you know, for me, it could be go out to a party and have more fun, or you know, a little bit and read a book.
Yeah, right.
You know, you think about that too. If you get 2 drinks in, you're not really reading a book,
right?
And then you're eating pizza
and watching a movie.
It's, not that those things aren't fun, but I don't know. It's been 6 months where I've transitioned completely from alcohol into just cannabis, and it's, you know, I sleep better.
Yeah, that's dope.
Wake up refreshed. Literally dope. You wake up refreshed. You don't. You can get a cannabis hangover too, but those are a lot more rare than you know, a whiskey hangover,
which is
at my age, it's every time.
Yeah, right. What did your parents say when you were having your beverage? Did they join you?
My mom has, yeah.
Okay.
She talks less. That's good. My dad was a user when he was younger. I've tried to convince him. I talked about earlier some of his issues with ibuprofen and things like that. Only person I know that had to quit drinking to help his liver recover, even though he wasn't a big drinker.
Sure.
My parents like to go to Vegas, so he'll drinks there, but he's just not drinking at home. He's not drinking at dinner. He's not drinking when we get together. It's Vegas, essentially. That's what he drinks, and he couldn't drink because of ibuprofen.
Yeah.
No, they love it. And my dad is a retired IBEW electrician, and he loves our mission of how do we grow the middle class through great cannabis jobs. And, he's a child of the 60s, too, so.
Yeah. There's some really big unions stepping up and organizing our labor force. I'm super excited about that. Do you foresee union being able to support them in their mission to organize the labor force?
Yeah, absolutely. To name them, it's the United Food and Commercial Workers 1189, right? They're awesome over here in St. Paul. Teamsters 120 and 346 out of Blaine and Duluth. Then the operating engineers, which everybody always says, what is that? You were a kid, you played with Tonka trucks, not trunks, maybe trunks. But Tonka trucks, they operate the real Tonka trucks.
Right.
And they're looking to organize too.
Awesome.
All awesome organizations. So you see if you come to try to bank with us, it's on our checklist of an LPA from one of those three. And it's a weird space though, right? Because when you operate heavy machinery or you're an electrician or whatever it may be, there's drug tests involved.
Yeah.
So it's a weird space. I believe UFCW started lobbying at the national level in 2007 for national legalization.
Yep.
Teamsters started doing the same thing in 2009.
Okay.
So they've been...
They're in the trenches.
They're in the trenches. Yeah. There's whole divisions, right? I talked to a gentleman at the top of the Teamsters today. They're organizing across the country. There's a guy out of Blaine they're taking him across the country to help organize, and the UFCW is doing the same thing. It's amazing people that want. There's 480-ish thousand cannabis workers in the U.S. right now.
Wow, it's a big number.
About 6,500 are organized.
Okay.
Right, so there's a mission for these guys to go out, and there's a lot of, and it's not cannabis, it's everywhere. There's a lot of bad jobs. There's a lot of underpaid jobs. There's a lot of places where you don't have a future.
Right.
What these organizations want to do is give a future.
Yeah, for sure.
You start at the dispensary, right? Work in the counter, then maybe you can move into marketing, or you can move into whatever. You can move through, and you have a pension, you have health care. You can sleep at night. Your kids can go to the emergency room without you having to freak out.
Right. And your kids can see you at nighttime.
Your kids can see you.
Yeah. Because you're not working 3 jobs.
Leading cause of bankruptcy in America? Medical debt.
Yeah, I believe it.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me. I won't get on that horse right now.
Yeah.
But these unions are trying to prevent that.
For sure.
And think about it. If you have a staff where your lowest paid person's $20 an hour, and they have a pension, and they have retirement, and they have health care, what's your turnover? It goes way down.
Yeah.
You go from 80, 85% to 20%. You don't have to retrain. It costs roughly across the industry $20,000 to train an entry-level person.
Oh, it's way a lot more for nurses. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you need 20 new people every year, then do the math. It's a lot of money.
Couple of things. I have seen some instances where cities, like I'm thinking specifically of like Trenton, New Jersey, just because I talked to a couple from there a couple weeks ago on the show. They talked about having guidelines for people that work in spaces where they're like helping professionals, or maybe people that work in like transportation or operate heavy machinery, having guidelines for cannabis use so that they could still access their medication in a safe way, so that they could do their work. So I think there's a lot to be done around that. And
you think about the stigma too. You can be a drunk and you have your last drink at 3 a.m.
Exactly.
But you had 15 and then you go to work and operate the machine. You're not sober.
And you might have to take a drink before you go, just so you don't shake.
So that's fine.
Yeah.
But you're medically making sure your anxiety's down, or you don't hurt, or you want to bend over and touch your toes.
Exactly.
That's not okay. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, for sure. I forgot what else I was going to say about it, but oh well. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you'd really like to get across about Union Bank and Trust, or about your personal story, or?
With Union Bank and Trust, it's something when I think about the way I grew up, an electrician father who was organized, an educator mother who was a organized teacher, grandfather, aunts. Both I have two aunts that were both presidents of their teachers unions, and then
Nice.
the crossover space to union. I spent 19 years in banking before I came to union. So just the way my life kind of came to this confluence a couple years ago in my 40s, I love to help people with their finances and help the business owners and help the large organizations just get things done.
Yeah.
And then being able to do it in this space, both with the union world and now in the cannabis space, because whether you're a user or not a user, I do believe it's a helpful situation. I think it's something that whether you want to use it to relax or you want to use it because you need to get up.
Yeah.
I hate the stigma of it. I hate the stigma of unions too. You talk to a lot of people and they have no idea what they're talking about. Oh, all they do is get federal money. No, they have 990s out there.
Yeah.
You can Google it. Show me the federal money they got for no reason.
Right.
It doesn't exist.
Right.
It doesn't exist. That money, that's the teacher, that's the nurse, that's the electrician's money that they're coming from the check for their future, for their healthcare, for their vacation. It's not. There's no racket.
What a great parallel.
Not that there was never rackets with things back in the day, but
Yeah.
it's not what you think. I challenge anybody that's anti-cannabis or anti-union, do some research. And I'd say that very loosely because research is not what us do on Google.
Yeah.
You get sick of hearing that, especially around the election time. I did my own research. No, you didn't.
Talk to a union member. How
Yeah.
about that? Go directly to the source and let them tell you about how being in a union has changed your life. I personally love my union. I
Yeah.
worked as a labor rep in my professional union, and I want to see my profession elevated, just like I want to
Yes.
see other jobs like teachers and, food service workers and janitors, the people that clean the hospital. I mean, these are all really important jobs, and people shouldn't have to be, giving away their labor for pennies. They should be compensated for their work, for their labor. I've always said that. There's been
Equitably.
and there's been such a war on labor since the 70s, really, and maybe even prior to that, so it's something that we really do need to fight against. You're right. There is a stigma. That's a really great parallel that you've drawn between cannabis and union work. So I really appreciate the mission and the sentiment of Union Bank and Trust. So I just want to thank you for being here today and spreading the good word about what you do and how you support this industry.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah. Thanks again. So any final thoughts? Other than the one you gave?
No, I think you got the best out of me there. Yeah, I'm excited, I guess would be my final thought. We've spent since adult use rec became law, we've spent months now trying to prepare operators, trying to prepare ourselves, bringing in new people, bringing in services, growing the COI network to make sure we can help this industry. And I'm just excited to see, we're going to see some licenses now, and we're going to get things going. And it's whether you bank with us or not, I wish you the best, because I want to see this thing just explode.
Yeah.
In a good way. We're the 23rd state, so haven't got everything right yet, but we're learning from the people that went before us, and we're learning from other operators in other states and from each other, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
How can people find you?
Union Bank and Trust, so www.ubtmn.com.
Awesome.
Or Union Bank and Trust on LinkedIn. You go out there, my cell's right there, in direct email. So
Okay, perfect.
whether you want to bank with us or you just want to kick the tires and have some questions asked, please call between myself and Oliver and Jason and Dwight that are on the front line. We'll be able to have those conversations. And if you're at Lucky Leaf, you met all of us.
Yeah.
So say hi.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing you at a lot more events and recommending you to people that are coming into the industry, and even people that are maybe already in it and unhappy with what they've been doing. So thanks for your time tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thanks for doing this. This is an awesome platform.
Thank you. So that's it for Conversations with Kush podcast tonight. Please remember to watch my podcast on YouTube, and I can be found on all audio platforms, including Apple and Spotify. So that's it for Molly the Kush RN signing off. Peace.